Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know. Dude, I gotta speak a little quietly on this episode. Again, I gotta switch my days up, but don't want to disturb, people around and all that other stuff. So, if I speak it a little bit lower, that's why. And that will be fixed next episode for sure. I think I gotta move it to Saturday when I record it. But anyway. Dude, we got a doozy of an episode today. We have been killing it. I thought we killed the draft for what we had and the assets that we had. I felt like we made the right moves. I think we got a lot of solid players and some great players as well. But we are killing, and you got to give it to Chris Greer. He always finds value, and really as an organization, we've always done a great job, no matter the regime, for some reason, of finding great value. And undrafted players. I mean, you think about Rob Ninkovich. I don't think Rob was drafted. I could be wrong about it. He definitely wasn't drafted. You think about Wes Welker. Those are like some of the great players that we've gotten, but there's some the Mike Holes of the world, the Neville Hewitts of the world, low-level guys that aren't high, just undrafted players. Chase Allen, who's been a good, player for us to add some depth. So we've always done a pretty good job of finding value there. And we are killing it. I think a lot of sites, have ranked us. I think NFL, Pro Football Rumors, NFL Rumors. I think we had and Pro Football Rumors too. We were really high and one of the best. Oh, excuse me, I didn't mean to hit the mic. Undrafted free agent classes. So we have been killing it. I just wanted to say that it's a good feeling as a Dolphins fan because. I don't know. It's just a really good feeling. It feels like we've gotten our quarterback of the future. If we can shore up the offensive line, it's just an exciting time to be a fan. Completely different feeling, even from the beat writer's perspective. It's just a completely different feeling than it was like a month ago, or 2 months ago. It's completely different. Even the media surrounding the Dolphins, like people from the Sun, Barry Jackson, Omar Kelly, they seem to be a lot more optimistic than they were before. Not necessarily on the team, but about the new quarterback we acquired, mostly about that. But it definitely makes the team more interesting. I think it's going to make the team more competitive if we can get the line shoot up. And I felt like we took a step in the right direction with some of the moves we've made in the undrafted free agent class. And there are some free agents out there that are still available, especially on the defensive side of the football, that we can utilize and that are really talented players. Will the Dolphins do it? I really don't think so. Some of them have character concerns and motor concerns, which is not what the Dolphins, this regime, especially they don't want it to be around their young players. They're going for this culture change. And Adam Gase, we heard that with Adam Gase, but it was definitely, that was a loose term in terms of culture. We had a coach snorting cocaine in the back, for God's sakes. So, and we had, Lawrence Timmons leaving the team, Rashad Jones leaving the team, benching himself. So, culture was a very loose term while Adam Gase was here. So favoritism all the time with Ryan Tannehill that we hear about and stuff like that, and completely just a lot of stuff. But this definitely seems more real in terms of the preference that this regime wants in a player. And I just feel like some of these players that we're going to discuss on today's episode just do not fit that criteria. But that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the undrafted free agents and some of the free agents left available because there's not a lot of news to talk about. But speaking of the news, let's get right into the news. There's just one news story, really. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins are eyeing a veteran offensive lineman. The Dolphins are likely to turn to the veteran offensive lineman. This comes from Pro Football Rumors, in case I didn't mention it. The Dolphins are likely to turn to the veteran offensive line market as well, Jackson writes, adding 4 players. Excuse me, no, sorry, I'm just see here. Looking at 4 players. Jared Veldheer, Donald Penn, Jeremy Parnell, Mike Rimmers, Andy Levitre, and Stefan Wynwitzki are some of the notable vets available. Out of any of those players, out of all of those players, none of them really. Mike Rimmers was a terrible. He's always been a very, very bad tackle. When he went to Minnesota, he was really bad. And when he was in Carolina, he was really, really bad, and he cost the Panthers a Super Bowl. So he's a good guard, though. I feel like he could play guard. He's a good run blocker, but he's a terrible pass protector. So that's a pretty big problem when you play right tackle. So I feel like if we could sign him, I think he could play guard. at a pretty decent level. That's the only one that really stands out to me out of those guys. Donald Penn, I just feel like is so far out of his prime. He's just not a good player anymore. Andy Levichus, something to be said for that, but other than that, there's nothing really. Jared, former Bronco, he was really bad in pass, but he's kind of same as Mike, but I don't think he can play guard. At least Mike's a good run blocker. And I just think that could be something we look at, especially for depth. I feel like if not, we could move him around. He's a physical offensive lineman. I think he could play guard. So yeah, that was it. So we're gonna go through some of the. We're not gonna go through every undrafted player, but I've highlighted some of the undrafted players that we're gonna talk about. If you're looking at the thumbnail for the video or the image that the video has right now, you can see Preston Williams, Ryan Anderson, Terrell Hankins, and what is his name? Deion Calhoun, I think is his name. That could be totally wrong. But we'll start with Preston Williams because he's the sexy name among the four that I have highlighted here. I think these four not only have a chance to make the roster, but could potentially make an impact on game day. Some of these guys aren't going to, but I listed four that could possibly do it. So we'll start with Preston Williams. He's a 6'4", 210-pound wide receiver. Okay, this is a physical big dude. Has a ton of off-the-field issues. But has a ton of production in college. Obviously, he didn't play at a big school. He played at Colorado State. But his production is ridiculous. He had 90. This is last year. This is 2018. He had 96 receptions for 1,300 yards. He averaged 14 yards a grab. He had 14 touchdowns. I mean, his yards from scrimmage are the same. He is a very productive player. Here's what I wanted to say. Let me back it up. That sounded terrible. Not only does he look the part, but he's also almost 100 catches, over 1,000 yards, and double-digit touchdowns. Not only does he look the part at 6'4", 210 pounds, but he's also highly productive. And when you're looking especially when you look into the undrafted market, you want to look for either physical traits or production. You're not going to get both. If you got both, then they would have obviously gotten drafted. So either you're looking for physical traits or you're looking for a lot of production. And he has both of those. He was projected to go in the 5th round in the draft, according to Sports Reference and a couple other sites that I can't remember. So he was I didn't know much about him until the Dolphins signed him, and a bunch of people were talking about him, and then I, looked into it a little bit. I haven't watched a ton of him still, but it's the stuff that you see and at least that I've seen so far and that what I've read so far is extremely impressive, especially to get a player like that undrafted. Obviously, if he didn't have some of the off the field issues that he currently has or previously had, maybe he would have gotten drafted. He also ran a pretty slow 40 time. Like when you look at him, he's 6'4", 200, and all that production, you would think. And when you watch him play, he looks a lot faster than when he ran. I think he ran a 4.6 40. That's like the equivalent of a Cam Newton, who also it's like that kind of speed. To put that in perspective, like Cam Newton ran a 4.6 40. So, when you're a tall physical receiver though, like Michael Thomas ran even slower than that. Jarvis Landry obviously ran like a 4.77 40 time. So that means pretty much nothing. His play speed is ridiculous. And he's a tall physical dude. This is a perfect, not that we need a big X receiver. Everybody still thinks for some reason when I brought up on the podcast that Devontae Parker wasn't it, and I was surprised that the team re-signed him. Everybody kind of freaked out and said, "Why are you giving up on him now? It was Adam Gase's fault." Well, was it Dan Campbell and Joe Phillips? Well, I guess you can make an argument that it was, but I don't know. I just feel like Devontae Parker, we're probably gonna get 900 on the money, 1,000 yards from him is probably his ceiling, and that's probably what I would hope that we get out of him, because the man just disappears for 2 months. He'll have a good game and then not show up for the next 6. So hopefully this is the guy. Hopefully this guy can come in and be a diamond in the rough, someone that who knows? He has the physical gifts, he has the production. When you watch him, he does exactly what you want an outside receiver to do. So it's going to be interesting. He's got great hands, too. 96 catches. For a big man like that, it's very rare. Like, that's Michael Thomas stuff. I'm not saying he's going to be Michael Thomas, but Michael Thomas had that kind of production, and he still has that kind of production. For being such a big dude, he's not as a polished receiver, but to grab that many passes thrown your way is still very impressive. And that is something that definitely you guys are going to have to keep your eye on, because he could be someone very special. So when those preseason games come along, Preston Williams, I keep want to call tongue twister. I want to call him Preston Smith for some reason. I don't know why. But Preston Williams could be potentially a lifesaver for this Dolphins offense in terms of being an outside receiver. I still feel like this receiving core is super underrated. Albert Wilson, a lot of people forget the tear that he was on. Hopefully he's utilized in the same way that like Julian Edelman and some of those players that Chad has coached in the past, because he certainly has the skill set to do so. If you think about Jakeem Grant, like some of the players that we have on this roster that are ascending and kind of got their seasons cut short due to injury, I feel like are going to just ball out. People forget Chad was the receiving coach for the New England Patriots. Think about all of the receivers that they've just taken in and out of the lineup that have been productive. Think about all of the receivers' careers he has saved. And think about a recent one, a perfect example of that is Philip Dorsett. I'm pretty sure now I'm not saying Philip is some crazy good player, but the Colts couldn't get anything out of him. And the Patriots got a lot of productive big-time plays out of him. So that's the kind of the coaching that he has shown throughout his career, and it makes me very, very excited because he has a very talented group of receivers that have a lot of special physical traits that he's never really coached before. And add Preston Williams to it too, because he is that kind of a guy. So Chad getting his hands on him, productive, 6'4", 210 pounds. He's got the physical and the productive. I'm very excited to see what his future holds for this team because of the coaching staff. I mean, you like Jim Caldwell in the building. You got Chad in the building. Very exciting stuff for some of these players, and including him. It's definitely, I mean, to me, he was probably the best or second best, because my favorite's coming up, because this player was desperately needed. I think we'll probably save him for last, but because I have a lot to say about him. But Preston Williams, for a variety of different reasons, is a very intriguing player that you have to keep your eye on him going down the line, because he could potentially be something special. For all the reasons I listed. So let's get into some of the big uglies here. Dion Calhoun. Now, we're not going to spend a ton of time on these guys, okay? And I say that, and I might actually spend a ton of time on these guys, but I still need to watch some more of this, but this is just a rough estimate, and the little things that I've seen and read. So stick with me here. But some of the things that I've read about this particular player is very impressive. So this next player that we signed is Dion. I think this is how you say his name, Dion Calhoun or Calhoun. I don't know how you would say his last name. He's a Mississippi State offensive guard, and God knows we need guards and physical. We desperately need guards and interior offensive linemen. Calhoun is 6'3", 310 pounds. He made 36 starts. This comes from Roto World. This is kind of a profile of him. Made 36 starts on the Bulldogs front five, earning second team All-SEC from the conference coaches as a senior, and surrendering just 3 career sacks, mostly playing right guard. So he had 36 starts in the SEC and only had 3 career sacks. That's pretty impressive. Now, it goes on to say that he's not the best athlete in the world. He's an unimpressive athlete. So there you go. So that's what he has the production, but not necessarily the physical traits that you're looking for in a star guard. And that's why he is undrafted. So, still, I mean, I'm not asking my offensive guard to be not JJ Watt, just LeBron James. You know what I mean? I just need you to be able to move people out of the way, especially the guard position. We don't necessarily, there's a lot of teams in the league that pull the same guy over and over again. I mean, the Steelers are the perfect example of that. They pull David DeCastro every single time whenever they're doing a play that requires that. And they do pull him a lot, but you can really build your scheme around one. If you have a dominant offensive lineman, at least one, especially in the interior, if you have a really good center and or guard, which we currently do not have, but Daniel Kilgore can pull, he's athletic, you really don't have to have 2 other ones, if you know what I'm saying. So he doesn't necessarily have to be that. He just has to be a serviceable starter in the league who can just consistently, or at least a little bit, move people out of the way in the running game and be able to pass protect. Because people are bringing up a great point. I mean, the Bills just drafted Ed Oliver. Even though they lost Kyle Williams, I still don't think that front is as scary. They have Star Latuila. It's not the scariest front in the world, but who knows if Ed Oliver could be the next Aaron Donald. A lot of people are comparing him to him. And another guy that they're comparing Aaron Donald is Quinnen Williams. And the Jets have two very dominant interior players. And we talk about Leonard Williams and now Quinnen Williams. So we have to have someone, especially within the division, who can at least be okay against these guys. And currently, we really don't have anyone on the rosters to sort of add Deion Calhoun, who has the production that you're looking for, only allowing 3 sacks in the SEC when he's played some of these guys. We talk about Quinnen Williams, some of the other interior. He's a senior, so he's played for quite a while there. And he had some productive years there. So I feel like he was someone I had to highlight. And the second to last guy that we're going to talk about here is, I think his name is Ryan Anderson. Hopefully I'm not getting that wrong, but I had some stats for him, lost it, could not find them again, unfortunately. So stick with me here. Ryan Anderson from Wake Forest. Now the stats that I lost, which is what I was trying to, because I haven't watched him, nowhere near enough to have an opinion on some of these guys, but some of the things that I've read for Pro Football Focus, I think he ranked 6th or 5th in pressures allowed among all college players last year at the center position, and I believe that's the position. It could have been guard, but I'm pretty sure it was center. So that's somewhat production there. So I felt like the only reason I highlighted him is because of that stat. I was like, okay, haven't watched enough of him, but I felt like that was something that you guys needed to know. Just a little surface level stuff right there that is meaningful to, substantial to some people. So now that we got him out of the way, this is the guy that I'm most excited about. Terrell, or however you want to say his name, Hanks, from New Mexico State. Now, I have watched a good amount, and this guy gets me very, very excited. Now, when you look at his production at Mexico State, not the biggest school in the world, but, he played against teams like that Josh Allen played against, and he played against Josh Allen's team, Wyoming. So, it's not terrible, but, it's not big. His last year at New Mexico State was insane, okay? He had 9, now he's had better years there, which we'll go over. So for his career, we'll start with that. In 2015, he had 9 tackles for loss. Okay, 2016 he had 12. 2017 he had 15 and a half. This last year he had 9. And let's focus on 2018. His tackles, he had 101 total tackles. I think he had, see here, it says he had 1 sack, but the year before that he had 7. He had 1 interception. He has 8 career interceptions. And I think he's had 7 career forced fumbles. He had 1 this previous season. His solo tackles, he had 33, assists 68. Games played, he only played 9 last year, so there you go for some of his low production. And some of the other games in his previous year, so in 2017 he started 13 games, he had 15 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 2 interceptions. That's insanely productive. The year before that he started played 12 games, had 103 total tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions. And the tackle for loss is something I really want to highlight here. The reason he didn't get drafted, and he was projected to go in the 5th round, is because his 40 time was so bad. He ran almost a 5 flat, basically a 5 flat. It was a 4.98, which is not good. And obviously, I mean, you got Quinnen Williams out here blowing him out of the water. You got, Montez Sweat, who are defensive linemen, who are not going to he's a linebacker. He has to go sideline to sideline. In case I didn't mention what position he played, he plays outside linebacker. I'm pretty sure they played a 4-3. They played a 4-3, not a 3-4. But he basically played the edge a lot. They blitzed him a lot. He was definitely involved in the running game a lot. He can 1,000% play on multiple fronts. Just watch him play. And the first thing, here's what I recommend you guys do first. Watch his highlight video first. Then you're going to get excited to watch some of the games that he's played in, because some of the plays that this dude has made are insane. He's a playmaking type of a player. He is, now you can tell that he's not the fastest athlete in the world. He's not the fastest guy in the world. When you watch him, you're like, yeah, I can see why the man ran almost a 5 flat. He doesn't have a burst. He doesn't have that, that gear that some of these guys can hit. But the one thing that you do know is physical guy, gets off blocks, is involved, and he can tackle, and he's productive. So again, doesn't have the physical traits that you're looking for, but is extremely, extremely, extremely productive at New Mexico State. Now, I think he's going to fix our outside linebacker problem. I would not be surprised if he started over someone like Andrew, the outside linebacker out of Wisconsin. Way more physical player, has a lot more production. Obviously didn't play at a big school, but still, he's 6 foot 3, 235 pounds. Yeah, 235 pounds. He's a big dude, he's a physical player. This is the edge guy that we needed. This is the edge defender that the Dolphins are looking for. Hopefully, now I'm really hoping that he is that, because I think he can be that. To think about some of the guys like Rob Ninkovich, undrafted. Look what he did up in New England. If we can coach him right, utilize him right, which Patrick Graham has done a lot of that, coaching some of the linebackers that he's coached. He's coached a lot of really good ones, including some of the guys that I just listed: Kyle Van Noy, Dante Hightower, recently Jamie Collins, some of the really good linebackers that he's coached. I think he also coached Rob, but he didn't turn Rob into what he was, obviously. That Mike Vrabel, that Rob Ninkovich, that Willie McGinnis, that edge guy that we desperately need, especially in this system, that can I don't need him to get after the quarterback. I just need him to get the other team in first and second long positions and just wreak havoc with the scheme. So I feel like we've finally got our edge defender in that classic New England guy. I'm not want to hype him up too much, but he has the ability to do it. And I'm excited to see where he goes. So I mentioned the slow 40 time. So let's look at some of the other New England edge defender stars. So let's start with Rob Ninkovich. Obviously, if you guys don't know, he was a Dolphin first, then became a Patriot. He ran a 4.91, almost identical, literally identical to Terrell. Not a great athlete, right? But was a star for the New England Patriots and was that edge defender that they needed. Kyle Van Noy, 4.75 or 4.71. Better, I wouldn't say considerably better, but it's definitely better. But not a great athlete. Not something that you're not like he's not a Devin Bush, you know what I'm saying? He's not some freak. He's not a Leonard Floyd coming off the edge. He's not a first round talent, but very productive, and maybe overlooked. And Dante Hightower too, not the most athletic guy, sucks in coverage, and that's something that we, especially in the Tannehill era, that we totally took advantage. Well, he only played in the Tannehill era, but we totally took advantage. You think about the play that I think about all the time is the Marcus Thingpen game-winning touchdown in 2013. That's a perfect example of Dante Hightower sucking in coverage, getting destroyed by Marcus Thingpen on a route. So, yeah, these are the guys, not the greatest athletes of the world, but are highly productive and can set the edge. And he literally, the same physical measurables that those guys had, especially Rob Ninkovich, and you look at what they did. So I don't think just because he's not the greatest athlete in the world should take anything away from what he could possibly do on the field. So it makes me very excited about him, and I'm excited to see what he can do. Now, again, these guys are undrafted, so some of these guys might not even make the team. That's just, I don't have to tell you guys that. But these are the 4 that I thought could definitely do something on our roster, especially since there's no one there, really. There's not a veteran guy that's been there who's productive that they have to beat out. These guys could potentially start on the football team, and I think Terrell probably has the best chance to do it, and I think he'd make an impact on the team. He's a tackling machine. He gets in the backfield a lot. Look at his career The man just gets in the backfield and hits people behind the line of scrimmage, and that's what we need. We need someone who can set the dang edge. Oh, sorry about that. Hit my mic. I don't even know that happened. Apologize. But that's what this is what we desperately need. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that for you guys. And again, comparing him to those guys in terms of their athletic measurables, super similar, but they're very productive in the scheme that they play in, and that is what I'm looking for my dude to do, is just be productive and set the edge. Now, people forget, dude, and I cannot stress this enough. Before we move on to some of the free agents that I think the Dolphins should go after, I don't think they will, for the stuff that I said at the beginning of the show, but just to I cannot stress this enough. To be an edge player, not everything is getting after the quarterback. Now, that's probably the most important thing, don't get me wrong, But to be versatile and to set the edge in the running game is so valuable. People, if you can constantly, at a consistent basis, get a team into third and longs, then you're going to be a good defense. Your secondary has to be garbage. The one godsend that we have on this defense right now is the secondary is super talented, like super talented. The second cornerback spot's it's not as bad as some other teams in the National Football League. Like Eric Rowe is a serviceable guy, and he's a starter in the league. He's nothing special. He's just a solid player. He's just a starter. But Xavier's obviously one of the best in the league. Bobby's one of the best slots in the league. Minka can do whatever the heck you want Minka to do. TJ is a serviceable starter. He's a good player, right? Rashad Jones is a special box safety, so the secondary is in place is a playoff caliber secondary, especially like a 6 seed. So and better in my opinion. So we just have to get the front settled. But again, it's very, very important. I feel like people, when you look at the Patriots defense, dude, the thing that they've done the best is first and second down. Just be good on first and second down. Getting teams into bad. They're physical in the line of scrimmage, and that's one of the things that, when you watch the Patriots play, and unfortunately, it really shows when we play them, and that's something that we've always struggled with, especially when Adam Gase was just physical fronts. That's what they do, man. They're just physical. They get in the backfield, and it's very, very important to look for a player that might not necessarily be great at rushing the passer, but gets in the backfield a lot. And I feel like that's undervalued nowadays, and it shouldn't be, because you look at all the productive teams, especially like the Ravens, they have slower guys up front, but they're physical guys that get in the backfield, and they're good at personnel, getting the right personnel out there first, second, and third down, and that's something that we've been terrible at. So to find players like this is very, very important. So let's look at this is the 50. Well, this is a list of 50 remaining free agents. This comes from NFL Trade Rumors, and I felt like it was a list that, if I had to make a list like this would be my list. Like, it's pretty spot on. There's only a few things I would change, but there's some guys that light up in here and that are like, dang, man. So just to get some of the guys out of the way, like Ezekiel Ansah. Like, when you see that name, you're like, how the heck is he not signed? Cross him off. He's not going to be a Dolphin. His motor, and he's not the greatest man in the world, and his injury history, and he's old. He's age 30. Just don't feel like the Dolphins are. There's just not a chance that's going to happen with Ezekiel Ansah. But there are some big names here. You look at some players like, well, Derek Morgan's retired, but let's see here. I think he is, right? Maybe he's not. I think that was that Brian Rakpo? Well, Derek Morgan would be perfect through forward. More of a handler guy, but I feel like he can, be a vet presence there. Nick Perry is a great name. He has, he can't stay healthy though. Jamie Collins is probably the one that pops. The thing about Jamie is he wasn't really utilized right in the scheme in Cleveland. I feel like coming back to Patrick Graham, who coached him. Brian Flores obviously as well coached him. I feel like would be something interesting. But if they're not interested in him, and it was a weird divorce when he was in New England. Obviously, there's some contract disputes. Maybe they didn't like some of the things that he said. Maybe he's not a team player, if you get what I'm throwing down right now. So maybe that's the reason why they wouldn't dip the toe in that pool. But talent-wise, I feel like if he got back in this scheme, he could be something special. And I feel like he fits. Some of the players that I think, look, Corey Legent, he would be, obviously he has terrible injury history, cannot stay healthy. Danny Shelton would be a perfect signing for the Dolphins. You talk about someone who could consistently get us get tackles for loss on the line of scrimmage. He's the perfect player for that, and would be perfect for the multiple front defense that we're about to run. Shane Ray is another. Shane Ray is someone that I feel like could be that vet. I think he had double-digit sacks one season, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was 8. But he had a really good career year. He was half decent against the run. I feel like he could be that guy that we could plug in and could be pretty good for us, especially in this scheme. So those are some of the players that really stick out to me. Jeremy Parnell is not great, but he's a name. Muhammad Wilkerson, obviously, I think is a big no. Just terrible locker room guy. Some of the other big name guys, Trey Boston, really don't need safety. Eric Berry, obviously definitely not someone the Dolphins are looking into. Ndamukong Suh, obviously not someone the Dolphins would be looking into. Michael Crabtree, no. Gulliver Quinn, way far out of his prime, 33-year-old safety, definitely something. And obviously we're stacked at safety, so that just doesn't make any sense. Obviously I told you Donald Penn, way far out of his prime. Jermaine Kearse, Morris Claiborne has just been up and down his entire career. Pierre Garçon's a big name, veteran presence, a good locker room guy, could be someone the Dolphins might look into. Probably not though, because we don't need a receiver. But in terms of the guys that I would say, these are some of the guys the Dolphins should look into. I would say Danny Shelton, Corey Legent. Why not take a flyer out on a guy? I mean, I feel like we have a lot of depth in the interior line. A lot of people forget we got good players there, like Vincent Taylor, Devon Godshaw. Like, those are good players. Jonathan Woodard's another good lineman that I feel like a lot of people are forgetting about. All three of those guys have dealt with injuries. But some of the guys that I would highlight: Shane Ray, Danny Shelton, Corey Legent. Those are three. Corey was one of the best D linemen in the league last year before he got hurt. Jamie Collins, I'll add Jamie in there just because Derek Morgan as well, but Jamie Collins, the reason I say Jamie Collins is just because he's a special player. I feel like he's a special player, and I still feel like he has a lot of football left in him. Especially if he plays in the middle, he's a big athletic dude who's got great hands. He's got great football instincts. If the locker room thing is an issue, remember, at least every time I watched some Cleveland games, he was more of an outside guy. As an edge dude, not necessarily. He played middle linebacker in New England, and he did a great job. So maybe getting him back to his natural position, and to a scheme that he had a lot of success in, will turn around his career. And he's still a physically talented player, and I still like he's got really good football instincts as well. So I just really don't know, because they did have, the locker room thing was a thing. One of the bigger reasons he got out of New England, they wouldn't pay him his money. He got a big head after one good season. Like, a lot of stuff that you're like, is he a good locker room guy? Is he someone they want in the culture? Probably not. And that's unfortunate because he's a talented player. But play like Shane Ray, like, there could be solid starters that we could get in the rotation for us. And talk about Danny Shelton as well, Corey Legent. Like, those are some solid players that if we could get on a cheap deal. And I don't know if that affects the compensatory picks. Someone's going to have to tell me. Maybe that's another reason the Dolphins aren't willing to do some of the things in free agency. I don't know if it would or not, but it's definitely something that could be someone could put that down in the comment section below. So we really talked about everything. Half an hour this year in the season is pretty impressive. I don't want to, pat myself on the back here, but to find stuff to talk about for half an hour about this football team is pretty hard to do at this time of the year, and I feel like we nailed it. So let's get into the fan Q&A. This episode, I don't know. I feel like the fan Q&A will carry us an hour. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff. The free agent stuff is the most interesting because it's like, where are the Dolphins at right now? Chris Greer has said multiple times that this will be built through the draft. That's why I don't think any of this stuff is going to happen with some of these stowaway free agents that can't find a football team. He literally said, they asked him a question in a press conference before the draft. Do you feel any pressure for the new philosophy that this organization is going under, where you have to find great players because we're building this through the draft? Not serviceable players that can add to a free agency class, but players that can carry the franchise to Super Bowl victories is the ultimate goal. He said, yeah, I do feel pressure. Because he was being honest, and the fact that he said that, I feel like there's no way that the Dolphins are going to go out and get someone like a Jamie Collins or Shane or Corey Legent. Maybe Danny Shelton is more of a lower level guy, but I don't see that happening. So let's get into the fan Q&A. This first question comes from Douglas Ward. He says, what are your thoughts on our receiver core, including our tight ends? And thank you for all the podcasts. I appreciate that, Douglas. It means a lot. You guys know how I feel about the receivers. I feel like it's an extremely fast group with very good route running skills. And the fact that Chad is coming, I feel like I've talked about this because it gets me excited. But the stuff that Chad has done in his career with lesser talented guys and being, getting them in the system that we're about to run, by the way, and it's a lot of rack, it's a lot of short stuff, it's a lot of attention to detail stuff, and I feel like the physical traits are there. Can he fit them into and if he can get him going in this scheme, it can be something pretty crap and special. So that's what makes me very excited. So I feel like the receivers are in place. They are learning a new scheme, which they've done. Well, not that much. I feel like most of them have been in Adam's scheme for their entire career for 3 years now. So that's probably. I mean, Albert would. I mean, he went from Andy Reid to Adam, now to Chad. So I don't think that's gonna hurt anybody too bad. But just to think about some of these guys, Albert Wilson, Jakeem Grant, especially those two, in this system, it might be something, it's very, 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 very exciting. So, the receiver core has me excited, but the tight ends have me excited as well, because Mike Gesicki is someone that he could shape, and it's interesting. I think it is sort of telling, although I don't think it is. I think when you look at Gronk and what he was able to do in New England, a lot of people forget how dominant. He was a physical player, obviously, but especially his last year in New England, he might as well have been an offensive lineman. Like, he took on D-ends a lot last year and made them look like he looked like a dominant tackle out there, like just moving people around. So Rob was able to do both, and they run they're in the I formation, they're in the shotgun, they're in the spread. They do so much different stuff in that offense that you have to have versatile players that can do a lot of different things. When you look at the tight ends, all of them are one-dimensional players. When you look at the two guys that we took in last year's draft, Durham Smythe, he's known for his run blocking, and you look at Mike Gesicki, he's a split, he's an outside tight end, he's a receiving threat. So there's not a lot of versatility there. So I feel like that's why the Dolphins went out and got a lot of these tight ends. It could mean that, or it's just like, yeah, we watched the Mike Gesicki tape. We're not willing to give on up. Yeah, he's a high draft pick guy. He's got a lot of talent, but we did not like what we saw on tape. That it could also mean that, but I feel like it is that. I feel like it is that there's just not a lot of versatility there. But I'm excited to see what Chad does with Mike. I know he's not the tight end coach, but I feel like, hey, get in his ear a little bit. You're running the offense. Help him out. I feel like he's going to have an effect on him. And in this scheme that is very tight end heavy and requires a good tight end, we saw over the years with Martellus Bennett, Rob for forever, and Ben Watson, some of the older tight ends there. And you have to have a tight end in that offense because you need to run the ball, and you have to have a dominant tight end. Like, most of the guys that I just named are really good in the run in terms of run blocking. I think Martellus Bennett is the only guy that's not as good as the other guys that I named. I think I only named 3 people, so it's not like I named a ton, but you have to have that. So the tight end position is intriguing, and hopefully he can fix Mike. But I think that's why you saw as many tight ends as you saw get signed. Hopefully it's they wanted to add versatility and not that they don't believe in some of the guys that are already here. But we'll see. I'm very excited what Mike can do in this offense, though. And, from the interviews that we saw of him, getting back with the team, he's very motivated to prove himself. So I'm excited. This next question comes from Will. He says, my late addition free agents you think we should sign to fill in the roster? Maybe Jamie Collins, a veteran right tackle, or even Ronald Darby? I didn't know Ronald Darby was still out there. Ronald Darby would fit the scheme perfectly. He's a great man-to-man coverage guy. That's what he does best. He's super athletic. He's got great ball skills. He would be perfect as a number 2, especially to X. But I don't see us going again for all the reasons I just said. But if I had to be, I think the top 3 guys that I would go after: Jamie Collins, not knowing his off the field stuff because I don't. Corey Legent. And probably Danny Shelton. And Shane Ray I would add in there as the 4th. But there's no real O-lineman that stand out to me as someone that I would, want to have on the roster. But we do need that depth there, so. This next switch comes from Will as well. He says, which new addition are you most looking forward to seeing play this season? Josh Rosen, dude. It's not even close. If we can put an offensive line around him and some of the talent that he has in the receiving, I think it's Mike Gesicki. I mean, he has potential to be something really good with his physical traits. You think about Jakeem, some of this, and Chad and Jim Caldwell, it could be something good. But if the offensive line, right now, we don't know, who's the right tackle. We don't know. We don't know even who's going to be the guards, really. I mean, we know Michael Dieter is going to be somewhere on the interior. He could play center for all we know. Daniel Kilgore could play guard. We don't know. So that's a problem that needs to be figured out. And we won't know until the season starts, really, or preseason starts. So that's a big issue. That's a big if. So if we can figure that out, and I feel like Jesse Davis could be a good right tackle, if we could figure that out, this team could be a lot better than a lot of people think they will be. I feel like this offense could be something pretty good, like good. I don't think it'll be great, but good. If Preston Williams shows up and he's like, hey, I could be like a dominant outside receiver, this offense could be one of the best in the league, but that's probably not going to happen. That's obviously a dream. But I feel like this offense could be a good offense, a solid offense, like a top, 18 to 15, somewhere in there, maybe 15 to 14 offense, if we can get the offensive line. And it could even be better than that, to be honest with you. I don't want to say top 10 because I feel like that's just me fanboying out, but I think realistically, if this offensive line, just to temper expectations, can get to where we need it to be, because there's a lot of speed and a lot of playmaking on this offense, then I think it could be somewhere in there, So, what was the question? I feel like I'm not answering the question. So, yeah, which player am I looking forward to seeing most? Josh Rosen. So, if all of those things happen with the offensive line, I feel like Josh can really show us. And if you look at, it's been a long time since the national media has been on a quarterback that's been on the Dolphins roster in a long time, like hyping him up to be this guy that can be great. Bucky Brooks came out and said he could be he can't be Brett Favre, but it's a Brett Favre-like situation where the Falcons, for whatever, same thing with Steve Young, by the way, like they were both drafted into terrible teams. They didn't do that great with those particular teams. They went to a better organization and coaching staff, and they turned their careers around. That happened with Steve Young. That happened with Brett Favre as well. If you don't know, Steve Young was traded from the Buccaneers to the 49ers. Brett Favre was traded from the Atlanta Falcons to the Green Bay Packers. And we all know the rest is history. So that could be, and Bucky compared it to, he compared the talent level of Josh Rosen. Not that they're similar players in terms of athletes, because they're not, but in terms of what he's able to do and how talented he is as a quarterback. He compared it to those situations. That's high praise, man. And I'm not saying the national media matters. I'm just saying the buzz around Josh Rosen, I haven't seen anything like this. I mean, he's being welcomed with open eyes. I'm surprised that the fan base is this excited. But I think I've always liked Josh Rosen. Even in last year's draft, I would have been ecstatic if we took him in the first round. So this makes me very excited. But the offensive line has to be sure. And I feel like if I'm right and the offensive line is right, this guy could be the guy for the next 15 years. You know what I'm saying? Like a franchise quarterback guy. He has the talent to do so. It's just, he's a pocket passer. He needs things around him to be the best that he can be. And that's something that we're going to have to do. So the offensive line needs to be fixed. If you look at just a great example of this is Peyton Manning and Eli Manning, if you want to throw him in there. But Peyton Manning and Troy Aikman are the best examples. Both number 1 overall picks. Obviously Josh Rosen was the 10th overall, but pocket passers that went to the worst team possible. The Cardinals last year were the worst team, and Josh Rosen played on it. Both of those guys, Peyton Manning and Troy Aikman, play terrible. Both of them have won Super Bowls. Both of them are considered the greatest quarterbacks, some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So it's not like Josh Rosen is like, why didn't you perform? Like, it's happened before with great players. And there's other quarterbacks that I can't think of right now that were pocket passers that played on the worst team. The next year, when the team got better, played a lot better. Jared Goff is another example of that. Played on the worst team of football, was drafted to the worst team in football. And it took Sean McVay coming over, better organization, better scheme, better surrounding parts to play better. So it's happened over and over again in NFL history. Like Jim Plunkett's another one. If you guys don't know who Jim Plunkett is, won 2 Super Bowls for the Oakland Raiders, played for the 49ers and Patriots, both drafted and played on the worst teams in the NFL at the time, and didn't play terrible. Pocket passer, goes to the Oakland Raiders, good organization, they surround him with good pieces, becomes a Hall of Fame quarterback. So this is the kind of talent that Josh has. It's just that he unfortunately played on a terrible team. But it's happened over and over again with pocket passers in NFL history. You just have to surround them with sufficient talent for them to shine, and that's just what you do when you get a pocket passer. So I'm excited to see if we can do that with Josh Rosen. So if that answers your question, well, which player am I looking forward to see? It's Josh. The next question comes from Will. He says, how confident are you in Rosen doing enough to secure the starting job by week 1? I'm very confident. I feel like he doesn't make mistakes. Well, I mean, when you look at his career, some of it is like, it's not really that true. I mean, he's made some, but he's always played on bad teams. Like, so it's hard to know if he's just pressing and wants to make a play, or that's just something that he's just gonna have to grow out of, or hopefully that's not something that sticks around. But I feel like he's just more. I trust him not to turn the ball over as much as Ryan Fitzpatrick. But I think it's going to be Josh. I think he's a better thrower. One of the things I was thinking about, it's like, God, we actually found a player that can consistently throw a fade route and who could just make all the throws that you want him to. I mean, like a perfect example of this is the two plays that come to mind last year that Ryan Tannehill just missed terribly. Like when you think about the Jets game that we won on the road last year, we really should have blown them out. Tannehill missed a few throws in that game that we should have literally just destroyed the Jets in that game, but we didn't. The Titans game should not have been as close as it was. Tannehill threw that terrible interception to Jakeem Grant, who, by the way, was wide open, and he just missed him. Jakeem Grant was actually wide open a lot. You think about some of the other games that receivers were running wide open. The Green Bay game is a good example. The Patriots game, the first game that we played against New England on the road, there was a couple times where Danny Amendola was open, and he just was missed. But those two throws come to mind, the one in Tennessee and the one in New York. And that's happened in Tannehill's career a lot. He has missed on big-time throws in games before that could have either made the game less close, even though we won it, or it could have won us the game entirely. Now, Tannehill's made some throws where people have dropped the pass. I don't want to defend Tannehill. I don't know why I have to defend Tannehill right here. But I feel like that's the difference sometimes when you think about great quarterbacks. They just make the right throws at the right times, and I feel like we finally got one who could just put the ball wherever they want. He's a dude. His release, everything about him when you watch him play is like, dude, we just gotta put a stable organization around this guy and a stable of solid players around him, and I feel like he's gonna do great. Alright, well, let's spend way too much time on Josh Rosen. This next question comes from Ron. He says, what do you think of the offensive line starting what do you think of this offensive line starting lineup for the Dolphins? So this is what he would want the offensive line to look like. This question comes from Ron again. He says, left tackle Tunsil, obviously. Left guard Isaac Asiata. Center Michael Dieter. Right guard Calhoun, who we talked about from Mississippi State. Right tackle Prince, who we drafted out of Ohio State. The interior is interesting. Obviously, I've seen a lot of people say that Michael Dieter might be a better center than he would in terms of a career. Not saying that he'll be a bad guard, but he might be potential to have a pretty good career at center. I've seen a lot of people say that. I still feel like Daniel Kilgore is completely left out. I feel like Daniel Kilgore would be a better guard than Asiata. The stuff that we've seen from Asiata has been disappointing. At this point, I don't really expect him to do anything, so just because of a few years now, every time any person or player has failed on this team, it's always, everybody blends out Adam Gase. That cannot be the truth every single time. It can't be. It just can't. So, I don't know. I'm not going to say it was Adam Gase's fault that Isaac Asiata never got on the field, because trust me, if Adam saw a dominant or just serviceable starter at guard, I feel like he would have started him. I don't think Adam is that stupid. So I just don't see Asiata change. If he has this great career turnaround, then great, but I don't think he will. The right tackle position, I still think Jesse Davis can be a very good I think he's a really good pass blocker. It's just he sucks against the run. He's just so bad against the run. So I feel like, and he's played right tackle before, and when he did play right tackle, a lot of fans, when I was doing the fan Q&A, like, we should probably put him at right tackle and put Juwan James at guard. I still feel like we should put him at right tackle because he's a good pass blocker. And when he played tackle, he played great. So I can see where you're going with it, Ron, but I think in my mind, I'm not saying you're wrong because I could be totally wrong as well. In my head, I feel like Laramie at left tackle, Dieter at left guard, Daniel Kilgore at center, right guard. We'll put I think how you say his name is Calhoun. I don't think that's how you say his name. I can't say his name. Calhoun? I don't know. The undrafted free agent from Mississippi State. Maybe we put there, I guess. Let's say he brings that production that he had in college to the NFL. Fine, we'll put him there. And then Jesse Davis. That could be potentially a pretty good offensive line. It has potential to be, but that's how I would do it. I just think Prince is not ready to be a starting NFL tackle. I could be wrong. This next question comes from Slayer. I think let me get closer here. Slay. Yeah, we'll just call you Slay, my dude. He says, I'm still early. but what is your best case scenario for the upcoming season? Offensively, Fitzpatrick having a Fitzmagic season behind an average O-line. It's not even average right now. We don't, dude. It's we are in no man's land with that offensive line right now. And good chemistry with Albert Wilson and Kenny Stills leads to a top 10 offense. Defensively, average play from the front seven with Kiko Alonso making big plays coupled with Xavier Howard and Rashad Jones, leading to the NFL's best secondary, leads to a top 5 defense, 11-5. So this is the best case scenario. I mean Fitzmagic. I mean that's one heck of a best case scenario. Do I think it could happen? I don't think Fitzmagic's going to be the starter. I think it's going to be Josh Rosen. So if you just replace him with Rosen, the whole front seven thing, like, I mean, yeah, I would throw Mika Fitzpatrick in there. You know, being a dominant player wherever he, you know, the multiple positions that he probably will play. Take Me Out says, I'm extremely excited about this expression for Take Me Out. He says, I'm extremely excited about Myles Gaskin, 7th round pick. I think he's a dynamic player who can fill a similar role to James White. What are your impressions of him? When I watch him, he's got a little bit of Ryan Matthews in him. If you're not familiar with Ryan Matthews, he was a versatile, talented player. He just couldn't stay healthy. And I feel like he's got a little bit of that in him. Just does everything good. He doesn't do anything great, but does everything good. And I agree with that. I don't know if it can be... I think Kenny Drake has the potential to be that guy who just affects the game in, you know, just every way you could possibly think of. And it's going to be exciting to see what Chad does with him. Because I feel like he can utilize him the best coming out of the backfield, and especially in this scheme. So, yeah, it does make me I like Myles Gaskin a lot. SM says, this next question comes from SM. He says, both our 2019 O-line picks go to guard, so we end up with Tunsil at left tackle, okay, and your favorite guy at right tackle. Can't remember his name, not too bad as long as no one gets injured. Thoughts? Yeah, I could be remembering this completely wrong, but I do remember Jesse Davis doing a pretty solid job at right tackle. I think this was in 2017. It had to have been in 2017. I think he played against the Panthers at right tackle. He did a good job, and I feel like, hey, that's better than a lot of people left. You know what I mean? There's no one really out there right now that can do a good job, and that's Jesse Davis that I'm talking about. So, yeah, I mean, it's a complicated situation. This next question comes from SM. He says, Brady sucks in 19, but so did the Dolphins. We take Tua in the 2020 draft, the 2020 draft, trade Rosen to the Patriots for a third. Thoughts? No, I hope that doesn't happen. I feel like a lot of people are overhyping that draft. And I mean, Justin Herbert, dude, there's not LeBron James in that draft of, you know, the quarterback position. So there's not the chosen one, I feel like. I mean, Tua could be that, but it's not like... Tua is really good, though. I'm not going to lie. Tua is really good. But after that, you got Herbert, you got... I mean, it's not... There's nothing really... I don't know. It's just nothing really, you know, that pops out. So I don't really believe. I just hope Philly Rosen works out. People forget, dude. He thought he should. There were a lot of people was it the 2018 draft that, you know, all these great quarterbacks thought he should go number 1 overall, and that's over Baker Mayfield, that's over Sam Darnold, that's over Josh Allen. He had similar, almost identical numbers to Josh Allen and Sam Darnold. So, and they both had better teams they had way better defenses than he did. Oh, accidentally clicked a video. So, I think it's just weird. It's just weird how people view Josh Rosen. But I hope that happens, not necessarily that. I just don't know. I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea. It wouldn't be a bad outcome if Josh and his entire team is terrible. SM. This next question comes from Manuel. He says, Manuel, or yeah, whatever. Okay. He says, what are people not hyped for Brazilian guy? Oh yeah, I forgot about him. I think he will be a D2. Your thoughts on my prediction? He could potentially be a really good nose tackle. I forgot about him. I'm excited to see what he can do. I mean, obviously the reason people aren't talking about him, I mean, he's not, you know, he's got to prove himself. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, I forgot about him. He has potential. I like that prediction. I think he could be a pretty good just guy that nobody can move. He like a Hulani Nana type of a guy. This next question comes from Ron. He says, what has been the most annoying question since the draft? Most annoying? I don't know. I don't think there's ever. I think that, to be honest with you, the optimism around this team right now, it's just a completely different tone shift from what it was before the draft. Estim says, Skaggs, what is your opinion of Luke Falk signing with the Jets? Do you think he will haunt us? No. He had a terrible preseason. The dude has a noodle arm. I don't understand. Like, his production in college was impressive. Don't get me wrong. And he had a good tape, too. But I just don't. His preseason was not that great, dude. And he just didn't look good. And I feel like if he had anything in him, then the Dolphins would have kept him. I mean, Chris Greer saw him. I mean, I feel like our quarterback room is good. And, you know, I don't think he'll haunt us, though, to answer your question, no. This next question comes to AB, the Kid 305. He says, Sup, Skaggs, do you think Rosen will be a franchise quarterback for us? And do you think he could be our Brett Favre, like when Favre got drafted, they traded him to Green Bay after one bad year? And it turned out really good with a better staff and team around him. Thanks, yes. I think he can. He can. It's just, will it happen? Who knows? I definitely think he can, though. It's just, we have to surround him with the pieces. And there are people in the building that I trust to do that. For the first time in a long time. And there's not just one, there's multiple. You know, when Adam Gase was around, he was the only one that I liked. Now there's like 3 or 4 guys that I really trust, like Jim Caldwell, Chad, Brian. I've come around, like what he did in the Super Bowl was very impressive, and from things that we've heard, like I trust him. Jim Caldwell, I think I said Chad, Patrick Graham, I like there's a lot of guys in this organization, Reggie McKenzie, who have had good stints with teams and that I trust more than like Mike Tannenbaum and Matt Burt. Like, no, like nobody trusted any of those guys. A lot of these guys are proven winners, dude. And there's a lot of them. So I'm very excited. This next question comes from Bahamas Dolphins. He says, do you think Preston Williams will be atomic in our offense? I hope so. I mean, he's the physical guest. He had the production. We'll see what happens. Will says, seeing how things unfolded, would you take Teddy Bridgewater if you was really willing to sign over Rosen? No, I would take Josh Rosen. He has a way better arm. He's just more talented as a passer than Teddy can be. His potential and his ceiling is way higher. So yeah, I'm excited, man. That was all for the questions. I think we answered everybody's question. Thank God the fan Q&A question segment exists, because, dude, this would be rough if doing a podcast like Link's show for the Dolphins. You guys really do save the day each and every single week. It's interesting. The optimism, I don't think it's necessarily that the team is going to be dominant. I feel like the door has cracked a little bit for this team to be competitive, and there's a light shining through. It's just that the quarterback position, we have someone who's talented enough to be a franchise quarterback for 15 years. The question is the organization going to do the right thing, and is he that player that can reach his talent level and be that franchise guy mentally? Upstairs, and I feel like it all comes down to the organization, the stability of the organization, and what we surround him with in this particular season is going to be interesting, because he has the tools at the skill positions. It's just about the big uglies, the meat and potatoes up front. What can we do, and can we solidify that? Because he is a pocket passer, guys. I mean, I don't understand what you guys not you guys, but what other people don't understand. When you're a pocket passer, okay, you can't have people just coming free. I mean, there's it's just not gonna work, So it just can't work that way. So I feel like I've repeated myself 1,000 times. So I'm gonna let you guys go. I hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. I can't wait to see if we do make any free agent moves on next week's episode. Preseason is closer than you might think. Was it 2 months away? So it's not that bad. We're close. And I guess for some reason the NFL offseason, obviously everybody's optimistic because nobody's played it down yet. But I don't know. I just have a good feeling about this team moving forward in the future. I really do. There's a lot of people that know what they're doing in the organization, and it just makes me excited. So I am Skaggs1383. And I was completely different before this. I was like, yeah, I think this is going to be a disaster. I think, like I said in previous podcasts, like we could win 4 games. Like that's how bad it could be. So, or 3 games. So, I just got execution 83, and now it's completely different tone around this team. I'm execution 83, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one.